Welcome to episode 5/chapter 5 of Small Talk with Shania. I cannot believe that we have already made it to 5 episodes. Basically, we are 1 month in to the podcast, and it still feels so unreal to like sit here and record episodes. I still can't even believe it. But here we are, 5 episodes later. So go us. I hope you guys are enjoying it so far. I have so much fun every time I get to talk to you guys, especially in this form, because I feel like we're truly just like chatting with each other. So, thank you guys again for always tuning in and watching and listening. I also hope that you guys had a good Valentine's Day. I know that just passed, and I know sometimes it can be like really hard for some people, and other people just love the holiday so, so much. So, regardless of how you celebrated, whether you were with someone that you love or with yourself, and it was more like a self care, self love day, I hope that you got to do everything that you wanted to do. I hope that you read books that you wanted to read, whether they're romance or mystery, thriller, fantasy. I hope that you ate all the food that you wanted to eat. Hope you did stuff that you wanted to do and it was just all about you and that you just had a really fun time. I know that I did. And I'm so excited for today's episode because I'm going to be introducing a brand new segment to the podcast. And that segment is going to be called the Shelf Test. And that is where we find out if a book is worthy of going onto the shelf of fame or if it's maybe not worth the space. And I'm going to be doing this by ranking the book from a 1 star to a 5 star. And only a perfect score of a 5 star book is going to pass the test and make it to the shelf of fame. That's right. And sometimes the books are going to be good, sometimes the books are going to be bad. That's what we're here for, okay? I'm hoping to read all types of books, whether they are TikTok famous or if they're not really well known, really just books that I'm kind of anticipating reading and ones that I really want to talk to you guys about. I think this is a really good opportunity for us to really dissect it together and really talk about it and put our full ranking and really put the book to the shelf test. I'm so excited for it. I've been kind of thinking about this idea for a while, so I hope that you guys like it. We have a really good book that we're going to talk about today. And just a forewarning, this will have some spoilers in it for this book. So if you guys maybe want to read this, maybe skip around, maybe to the end where I'm just going to kind of talk about the overall ranking of the book and if it makes the shelf test. Other than that, the episode is pretty much going to be me talking about the book and details and quotes and things that kind of happen in it. So this is just your warning right now to exit the episode if you are not interested and getting any spoilers and not knowing anything about the book. But if you've read it or if you really don't care about that, then please continue watching. We're going to have a fun time. So before we get into the overall like test and the shelf test of the book, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about how I rank books and what my scoring from a 1 star to a 5 star looks like, because I know for everyone that's different. The way that you rank books is probably completely different than the way that I rank books, and that's completely fine. I think that's the beauty of reading. Obviously, it's subjective. We all know that. So, for me, it's not like a full-on battle for a book to get like a 5 star. I'm not just throwing out 5 stars willy-nilly. Like, it takes a lot for me to give a book a 5 star, and I take my rankings very, very seriously. Okay. I'm not just going to give a book a 5 star because I feel bad. I'm not afraid of giving a book a 1 star or a 2 star. So let's just start there. Okay. Just want to let you guys know. I do not take my rankings lightly. It's a very serious thing for me. Okay. So, how do I rank books and what is my thought process and my strategy when I go into ranking books, whether it's a 5 star or maybe a 3 star? There's 5 top things that I take into consideration when I am ranking and rating a book. The first one is, was I hooked within the first 5 chapters of the book? I feel like this is really important because I can pretty much get a good vibe from the book within the first 5 chapters. Do you know what I mean? Maybe sometimes it's like the first 10 because there's a lot of introduction for the characters and a lot of the world building. But typically, I can tell if I'm really going to enjoy a book from about the first 5 chapters. If you're not catching my attention within the first 5 chapters, it's probably not going to be a 5-star for me. It might be more like maybe a 4-star or a 3-star or something. Second, was I texting my friends about it? If I'm not texting my friends about the book every single second and every single chapter, did I even like the book? Hello? That's a super important one. You got to tell your friends about it. If I'm not texting my friends about it, then I'm just like, then there's nothing really sticking out for the book for me to be texting them about. Do you know what I mean? Did I gasp, cry, giggle, or kick my feet while I was reading the book? Because if it's a horror book or a mystery and thriller, then I'm probably like gasping, or I'm probably, you know, maybe crying, I guess, or, maybe just having a overall shock. This is more like an emotional reaction, I would say, regardless of if it's like a romance one. If it's romance, I'm going to cry or giggle, maybe kick my feet at like some lines and stuff too. So these are more just like kind of reactional things. If I have some type of reaction to the book or something that happens in it. Was it unput downable? Did I need to read this book every second of the day? Was I thinking about it when I was at work and wishing that I didn't have to put it down? That's obviously a really key factor when reading a book. I want to feel as though I cannot put the book down, and I want to feel like if I don't read it from front to back, I'm going to go crazy. Do you know what I mean? It's just like a really important factor to me. And I want to feel like I'm so immersed in the story that I just can't put it down. And lastly, would I recommend it to a friend? Obviously, I want to try and recommend every single book to all my friends. Every book I read is not going to be for every single person, but I'm always going to recommend a book, even if maybe I don't like it, because that doesn't mean that you're not going to like it. You know what I mean? But let's be real. Sometimes there's going to be books that I'm just like, yeah, maybe I recommend it for some people who would be interested in this, but I wouldn't recommend it to my girlies who I know what you like. So that's generally like my top 5 things that I take into consideration when I'm ranking a book. But let's get into my star ratings and get a little bit more detailed, because again, everyone's a little bit different when it comes to star ratings. Sometimes I talk to people and they're like, "Yeah, it was an okay book." And they're like, "I didn't really like it that much. I gave it 3 stars." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, 3 stars to me is like pretty okay, but for some people it might be really really bad, cuz some people are afraid of giving like a 1 or 2 star. Not me, but so how do I rank my books from a scale of a 1 star to a 5 star? If it's a 1 star, honestly, I probably should have DNF'd it. Like, absolutely not. I was not vibing with it, okay? I'm not afraid to give a book a 1 star. If I read the book the whole entire way through and I still gave it a 1 star and I decided not to DNF it, first of all, I'm so strong for that. And second of all, maybe I was just too invested in the story at one point or another, and I was just like, "Well, I'm not gonna waste my time. Might as well just finish it." That's happened to me a couple times with books. Maybe it was like a book club one, so like I had to read it for book club, or maybe it was I was too far down. I was already halfway through, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna finish it at this point. Now I'm like kind of invested in the story, but not invested enough where like I'm gonna rate it higher than a 1 star. But you understand what I'm saying. So that's a 1 star. A 2 star is like I could see the potential, I could see it, but the execution was poor. That happens a lot with books. There's so many that I've read where I'm like, I see where you were going. You were cooking something up, but the recipe was not a good recipe. Do you know what I mean? That's a 2 star to me. Not necessarily that maybe I wanted to DNF it, but it was like, it just didn't, it missed the mark for me. It wasn't as bad as the 1 star, but it was getting there. A 3 star to me is not good, but it's not bad. I would probably recommend it to someone. It was enjoyable and it was pretty mid, honestly. I'm not going to give like probably a regular summertime rom-com book a like 5-star. I might give it more of a 3-star, maybe a 3.5, maybe 3.75, unless it's like one of the most amazing, like heart-wrenching stories. But typically, like when I give a book a 3 or like a 3.5, 3.75, it's that I enjoyed it enough that I would like maybe want to recommend it to somebody else, but like I'm not going to pick it up ever again, but it was fun for the time. That's kind of the vibe that I mean when I say like a 3-star. Not bad, not amazing, but enjoyable. A 4-star to me, I loved it. Okay. She was almost there, that she almost got a 5-star, but she didn't quite make that cut. However, I thought about her a lot. Okay. She was missing just a couple of pieces that maybe would have brought her and like tipped the scale to be a 5-star, but overall, very enjoyable. Okay. There's so many more times than not, I'm rating a book a 4-star to a 4.5 or a 4.75. Sometimes I'm a little bit afraid to commit and give us like a book a full 5-star. So I'll be kind of like a little lazy with it and I'll give it maybe like a 4.5, which is so high to me. Like if a book is 4 stars and above for me, like that's huge. A lot of the books are typically more like a 3. I think a 4 is pretty strong, honestly. And a 5-star book to me, perfect, exquisite, no notes. I probably have absolutely nothing wrong with this book, and I would probably read it again. Definitely recommend it to someone. It's going on a very special place on my shelf, aka the shelf of fame. It's passing the shelf test for me. No notes, like I said. Really, really great. Those are a little bit more rare. They come and go, but when we do get them, they're very special, and I hold them very near and dear to my heart. Now, a 6-star. A 6-star means that it consumed every waking second of my life. I ate, slept, and breathed this book, okay? It was pretty much all I could think about all day, every week, for months. It's not only going on the shelf of fame, it's going in like a shrine for this book. That is also another one that's so rare. Maybe within the year, I get 1 or 2 6-star reads. It's rare, but it happens. I think last year I got maybe 3. I think, yeah, maybe 2024 I had like 3 6-star reads, which is a lot actually, I feel. I don't give those away very lightly either. 5 stars, I definitely don't give out lightly. 6 stars, whew, you really got to blow me away. So, now that you guys know a little bit more about how I personally rate my books and what goes into my strategy, we're going to dive into the book that we're going to talk about today. Okay. I think that was all crucial information that you need to know in order to know and understand how the shelf test works and how I'm ranking the books. So, if there's no further questions, we're going to get into the shelf test, our very first shelf test. And the book that we are putting to the test today is one of my most recent reads. Literally just finished it a couple days ago, right before I started filming this video. And that is First Time Caller by 𝓷𝓬𝓷𝓷𝓮𝓬𝓭. You guys know this book. You're seeing it all over. You see it on TikTok. You see it on Instagram. Everybody's talking about it. And for good freaking reason. Okay. I'm not going to get too much into it because I'm going to save it for, the entire video. Getting a little bit ahead of myself. But you guys are seeing it for good reason. There is a lot to discuss about this book. It's a rom-com, so just understand, what is the book that they kind of say that it's about? Something Lost in Seattle? I'm so sorry. I don't know what the movie is. Sleepless in Seattle? Oh my God. I'm going to get hate for this because I don't know what it is. Sleepless in Seattle. Okay, I think I was right. Okay, Sleepless in Seattle. That's hard to say. Sleepless in Seattle. Inspired by that love story. I've never seen that movie, but apparently it's a really cute one. And for people who have seen it, I guess the book is very like heavily not heavily based about it, but it's kind of, like I said, inspired by it. So first time caller. First of all, these are the tabs. If you can see, if you're watching the video right now, um, then you can see how many tabs I have in this book. It was my very first book that I ever annotated. I had never annotated one before. I was very nervous about it. So I hope that I did okay. I'm also going to read a couple of quotes and stuff to you guys as well. So let's talk about what the book is. I'm going to read the back for you guys so you can hear exactly what the book is about, written by the author. So it's kind of broken into each character. So it starts with Aiden Valentine. Aiden Valentine has a secret. He's fallen out of love with love. And as the host of Baltimore's romance hotline, that's a bit of a problem. But when a young girl calls into the station asking for dating advice for her mom, the interview goes viral, thrusting Aiden and Heartstrings into the limelight. Then we'll go into Lucy Stone, which is the FMC. Lucy Stone thought she was doing just fine. She has a good job, an incredible family, and a smart, slightly devious kid. But when all of Baltimore is suddenly scrutinizing her love life, or lack thereof, she begins to question if she's as happy as she believed. Maybe a little more romance wouldn't be such a bad thing. Everyone wants Lucy to find her happy ending. Even the handsome, temperamental man calling the shots. But when sparks start to fly behind the scenes, Lucy must make the final decision between the radio-sponsored Happily Ever After or the man in the headphones next to her. So, if you can tell, this is basing the story is based around a radio show. Aiden Valentine is the host of this radio show called Heartstrings, and it's a basically a dating advice radio show where people call in and they have questions about love and about dating, and he's the person to answer their questions. But as we just learned, he is definitely someone who has issues with love on his own. So although he's the one giving advice, he could probably use a little bit of advice as well. He enjoys talking to people, so I think that's where his love for that goes. And maybe once upon a time he believed in love, but he's kind of lost the passion for it and needs a better understanding of what love looks like nowadays for him. So he kind of gives off like a little bit of a grumpy vibe as well. He's definitely like golden retriever. No, he's not golden retriever. I'm trying to think of like a dog to. I guess he's more like a golden retriever who has a little bit of a temperament issue. Let's just go with that. I think that describes him very well. And Lucy Stone, she's the FMC. She has a daughter. I believe it's like she's 10 years old, her daughter, maybe 10 or 12. She's a single mom, but co-parents with her daughter's father. So very good relationship there, strong family life. But again, really struggling in the romance department because she's just kind of had some bad luck with dates and with men. So she's kind of given up as well. One night, her daughter calls into the radio station that she's heard, which is Heartstrings. She knows that this is a dating hotline and it's somewhere to go if you have issues with love. And her mom catches her, late at night on the phone and she's like, "Who are you talking to?" And she finds out that she called into the radio station and she starts talking to the guy, which is Aiden. And she is very skeptical and she's very like standoffish. She's about to hang up the phone, but he's like, "Listen, like, I can help you. Let's dissect your love life a little bit more. Let's get into like who you are, what you like, what kind of guys you've been dating before. Like, let's really unpack this?" And she makes the decision to stay on after a commercial break. They start talking and they lose track of time. And then literally the next day, the thing blows up. That episode goes viral, just like we read in the back of the book. People all around Baltimore know Lucy now. They know her story, and people are wanting updates. It's literally like a real life thing. Like when things go viral in real life on TikTok, it's like we want answers. We want updates with the characters, or not the characters, but the people. And like we want to know the next part of their story. And this is exactly what that is. And they offer her essentially this kind of part-time role where she is going to be co-hosting Heartstrings with Aiden, like every other night. And people are going to be calling in to hopefully be potential candidates for her to date, which is really odd. So not only is Heartstrings like a dating line, but now they're turning it into a whole like love search for her, like a potential dating app kind of thing, which is like not what she wanted, but she's intrigued and has really nothing to lose in this whole situation. So she says yes, and she ends up co-hosting with Aiden. They spend a lot of time together. They're obviously in the booth together, and the way that they hit it off is so incredibly romantic and it's so juicy. They have such good banter. They're so witty. And the way that they interact with each other is just like you could cut the tension with a knife. It's so thick. I loved reading about these two characters. And I want to read a couple of quotes and kind of take you through like the journey of the book. Like I said, if you read it, you already kind of know, but let's just kind of go through it together just a little bit. There's a lot of tabs, so I'm just going to pick a couple of my favorites. One of the first tabs that I put on here was for something funny that made me laugh, and also for something that I thought was really like romantic. So I guess this is the very first thing that I ever highlighted, which was my favorite quote in the entire book. It's only on page 24 and says, "Her voice is smooth, honey in a mug of hot tea." I think about that quote all the time now. It is so smooth. Everything that this man says is swoon worthy and will literally make you melt. That is one of my favorite quotes in the entire book. I just think it's so cute. I put little hearts around it. And then I also loved when they were bickering about when she was kind of deciding if she wanted to stay on the phone and stuff. And he's like, all right, Baltimore, stick with me. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors. She says, we will possibly be back after these messages from our sponsors. He says, one of us will absolutely be back after these messages from our sponsors. So those are the first two things that I highlighted in this book because I thought it was just so hilarious that they were kind of going back and forth already and having this like sense of banter with each other. And then looks like the next thing I highlighted was also something romantic. Oh, okay. And he's kind of talking about her laugh and like her voice again. Where he says her voice is the oddest combination of smoke and sweet, like the bite of a good whiskey. Ugh, everything he says is just so good, and the way that he describes her is just he's such a man. I love it. Like a good man, you know what I mean? um and I love when they're like first talking about what she's looking for, and she really like describes to him that what she's looking for is not necessarily like one type of man or like one type of relationship. She's looking for magic and she's looking for it just to come naturally. And she doesn't want this relationship to be forced. She wants there to just be a natural connection with a man who just naturally wants to be with her, naturally wants to give her all the attention. And like she says here too, what's wrong with being a romantic? I can be a confident, independent woman and still want someone to hold my hand, to ask about my day. It's a good thing to want passion and excitement and care, attention and affection. I absolutely love that because I think a lot of times people are kind of criticized for like wanting romance or for being hopeless romantics because a lot of people think that it's like very cliche or it's not realistic. But like, what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with wanting that, but still being independent and still being secure in yourself. You know, every person wants attention and affection. And if you don't, then you're looking for something different. That's all, you know? So once we get to that part and then she starts to agree to be on the station, things get a little bit more heated. He makes a really funny joke. I'm trying to find where he says something where she's looking for the dentist. She's looking at the sign and there's like an old dentist sign that's still up and there's no dentist there, and he says they're making jokes about like, oh, can I help you find, the dentist office? She's like, oh, what, with a root canal? He says, I don't think you want me in your mouth. I love that. It's so inappropriate, but it's so good. And then he already starts to talk about like her smile and her grin, and he says, beautiful. She's really fucking beautiful. And he just continues to like compliment her throughout the entire book. Um, so really the rest of this book, kind of what transpires is after she gets on to the radio show, they start forming, I guess, somewhat of a friendship. They become friends, and he's learning a lot about her. She's learning a lot about him, and it's really difficult for him to see her essentially being offered like all these dates and all these guys talking to her. And it's hard for him because he's starting to form a connection with her. He's starting to feel almost like a sense of protectiveness over her, and seeing this is really wearing on him. But he knows like he's not really the person who is looking for love. He's not really the person who even knows what love is. So how could he has no really, you know, no sense in even, or no business really even having feelings for her, because he doesn't really know how to love. That's what's going through his mind the entire book. He thinks that he doesn't have a reason to feel anything towards her. Um so once she starts going on dates, and then she gets not stood up by a date but ridiculed by one of her dates. He gets really upset about it, and her ex-husband or her ex-boyfriend goes into the radio station raising hell and like starts poking at Aiden and is blaming him for everything. And they start to just realize, okay, this is not maybe going as well as we thought it was going to be. So her ex-boyfriend starts, or her, her daughter's dad, they're still really good friends and they're very close in the family. He's like, I'm going to pick your next date. Surely, if I pick it, he can't be bad. Which is really funny. And then she ends up going out on the date with that guy, and he stands her up, and it was not good. And then Aiden finds out about it because she ends up texting him while she's at the restaurant, and she's like, oh, are you working? He's like, no. He's like, aren't you on a date right now? And she's like, well, I'm supposed to be. And then he stops texting her all of a sudden. And so she thinks that he's just kind of like blowing her off or whatever. And then he ends up she leaves the restaurant. She's like done. She's like, all right, I'm going to go home now. Like, no one's coming. She runs into him outside. He's literally sprinting to the restaurant to come and like save her and be with her, because he felt so bad that she got stood up. And it was just such a good start to the rest of like their night, because he takes her to like to this bar where they have like, I think, was it karaoke or something? Maybe not karaoke, but they have like a jukebox or whatever. And the drinks get flowing and they start getting really flirty with each other. It was so good. I loved when that kind of climax happened, because you really started to see, oh, they played like skee ball and stuff. I think they went to like an arcade or something like that. I think that's what it was. You really just start to see like their relationship start to blossom there. Like there's a lot of tension before that, but this was the moment that they really started to kind of admit a lot of things to themselves and also to each other, even though it might have been like a slip just because of like the alcohol flowing and stuff. But it was really a turning point and I absolutely loved it. Let's go ahead and read another quote. Oh, this is when they're leaving, I think. He says, I'll see you then. She says, yeah, on Monday. Mm-hmm. Bye. See ya. I'm leaving now. I've heard rumors about that. I'll see you Monday. Get out of my house. He ends up staying over her house after that whole skee ball thing. They didn't end up doing anything, but he ended up going over to her house and staying the night because they're both really drunk. And that's kind of how that happened. It was really great. Let's read another. This is like when they kind of really start getting a little bit more touchy feely with each other. He says, my hands on her hips, her fingers sifting through the hair at the nape of my neck while we swayed in the middle of the sticky floor. Her hands reaching for me from the couch in the middle of her dark living room. Her dress almost indecently high against her thighs. The happy sigh she made when I slipped socks over her cold feet. How her whole body softened against me in her sleep. Her nose nudging at the hollow of my throat. It's just a crush. We're spending so much time together. It'll fade. It's the flimsiest lie I've ever told. I love when the MMC has that moment of like, I'm lying to myself. I know that this is more than just a crush, or I know that it's more than like we're admitting. I love that moment. And that happens so many times in here where he's just like, "Ugh, yeah, I'm in too deep." He's like, "I fucked up." And he just knows that he's lying to himself and is, like, so infatuated with her. I love it. Let's go to another highlighted part that I tabbed. There's so many, so I'm literally just going through this whole thing. Let's see. He says, oh, she says when they're talking, I think this is about when maybe when they're about to like hook up for the first time, somewhere around there. She says, "I want to feel it first and think about it second." She's talking about um really like love and falling in love and relationships and stuff, which was really, really nice. Oh, this is towards the end. Hmm. Oh, sorry. Okay. See, we're going through this together, guys. This is when she realizes she might want to stop the experiment. She might want to stop like being on the show and having all these guys kind of offering to date her and stuff because she's feeling overwhelmed and she's starting to realize she has feelings for somebody else, which is Aiden. And she's saying, I think I'm going to stop this whole thing. I want to feel it first and think about it second. And she is talking about how she met a guy the other night and she starts telling their story about when they went to go play skee ball at the arcade and all these different things. So it was a really cool moment for, again, kind of like that self-realization that she finally had. Let's see. There's so many good quotes. Oh, this is good. They say, "Good night, Lucy. Good night, Aiden." And who says that? Oh, this is Lucy. She says, "I dream of rough laughter and coffee beans hidden in cookie tins, Aiden's voice in my ear, and his firm hands on my hips." Such a cute moment. And then once we get a little bit more towards the end of the book, is what happens? She catches Aiden talking to his boss, saying that he kind of wanted her off the show because we all know he likes her and he doesn't want to see this happen. And he already kind of knew that she was done with heartstrings and done with like finding, her love and that journey for her and stuff. And she kind of takes it the wrong way. He explains to her, "That's not what I meant. I just mean that, like, you're better than this and I don't want to see you doing this anymore." And he's just so afraid to admit that he likes her. And she's been a lot more vocal throughout the entire book, kind of telling him, like, you know, "This is how I feel about you. I don't think it's just a crush. I'd like to see where this goes." But then he was also like, "Well, maybe where do we take this then if that's what you want?" And she says, "Well, why do we have to take it anywhere? Why can't we just continue being who we are? Why can't we just continue what we have going on? It's a good thing. We'll take it from here." And he kind of took that as like she doesn't want to take it further. So there was a lot of miscommunication happening there. No one was really speaking their minds. And she essentially gave him some type of ultimatum saying, like, "I'm going to leave the show regardless, whether you want to do something about it and you want to make this official, you want to get in touch with yourself and figure out what the hell you want. I'll be here waiting for you to give your answer," essentially. And obviously, if you read the book, he comes to terms and realizes the reason that he had, some commitment issues, not the commitment issues, more the issues with love, was kind of stemmed down from his family because his mom had cancer when he was younger and she's been sick over and over again. And he saw how horrible his dad dealt with all of that. And he didn't want to become like that. He didn't want to have to go through that same pain. And any time that really the whole thing about this book that is so beautiful is like, yeah, it's a cute little rom-com, but it was more about how Aiden deflects and how he kind of just has this big shell over him where he avoids confrontation, avoids anything that might remotely make him sad or have any type of emotion. He completely ignores that and puts kind of his walls up. He won't go on vacation with his parents because he's afraid he's going to get too close to them. And then when something happens, he's going to be too upset. He's avoided love because he doesn't want to get too close to someone because if something happens, he's going to be too upset and he's going to be devastated. And if he puts too much time into his job, he's going to be too devastated if something happens. He has all these walls up. And it's really hard for him to break that down and to finally convince himself, I'm deserving of love. I'm deserving of these things. It's okay to be emotional. It's okay to get attached to things. And that's the beauty of this book because it is just so deep. The romance aspect is amazing. But when you get down to the nitty gritty and like he finally has that realization, you also have that realization. I know for me, I kind of have that same thing where it's like, not that I have walls up, but I definitely feel a sense of like, I'll try to avoid something if I know that I'm going to have maybe like a cry from it or if it's going to make me feel anything. I tend to try to avoid it as best as I can so I don't have to have that kind of confrontation from it. So I definitely sympathized with that aspect of his character. So that was really, really neat for me to read about. Not to mention the love story is just absolutely beautiful. And then at the end of the book, he calls her on the station where they kind of like make this whole plan and this ploy to get her back on the station for like a hot second. And it's like, Aiden's not here. And she goes over there and he calls in and he apologizes to her and essentially confesses his love. And then they, I guess, live happily ever after. The book was such a beautiful story. And I think that it was just a really good example of books that deserve the hype that they are getting. I never read anything else by BK Borison. I don't know if she has anything else. But this one was really, really great. I absolutely loved it. I think I read it maybe in like a couple sittings. I think it took me a couple days because I was really trying to savor it. I wasn't trying to like rush it or anything. But definitely, I read you guys a couple of the quotes that I had highlighted and some of my annotations in the book. It's my first time doing that. I'm not gonna lie. Annotating a book definitely adds time onto your reading. Like, I feel like I could have read this book a little bit faster had I not annotated, but with the highlighting and then the tabbing and getting everything together and stopping and going, it's definitely adds on a little bit of extra time, but it was worth it. It was really, really cool. So let's get on to the actual shelf test. Now that we've talked about the book and we've kind of dissected everything about it, does it pass the shelf test? Let's go over a couple things. How I rank my books. Obviously, we talked about this a little bit. Was I hooked within the first 5 chapters? Absolutely, I was. The first 5 chapters was hilarious. It had me hooked with the phone call. Both of the characters were really funny and they were really engaging. And I felt like I was a fly on the wall every time that they had a conversation with each other. Was I texting my friends about it? Yes, I was texting my friends some of the quotes. I was telling her that I was annotating it. I told her that I loved the characters. And I'm pretty sure that I told her, I was like, I'm not even 100 pages in, and this is already like one of my favorite reads of the year. And it's February. So yeah, I was definitely texting her about it. Did I gasp, cry, giggle, or kick my feet? I didn't really gasp or cry. This book wasn't sad and it wasn't like a shocking book either, but I did giggle and I did kick my feet a lot. Was it unput downable? Definitely unput downable. Like anytime I did have to put it down was out of against my will, really, because I just maybe didn't have time or had to go do something. Otherwise, I would have sat here all day and read it. And would I recommend it to a friend? Absolutely. I'd recommend it to you guys and I'd recommend it to absolutely anyone who loves a good romance book. And at the end of the day, what I ended up rating this book was, drumroll, a 5 star. This is my first 5 star of the entire year. The entire year. We're only in February. Be real. My first 5 star of the year, which is a pretty big deal for me. Absolutely loved everything about this book. Like I said, a 5 star to me is perfect, exquisite, no notes. I really have no notes about this book. It was such a fun, immersive, flirty read. I think it's perfect for spring, perfect for summertime. It wasn't overly cheesy and overly funny either. Sometimes when I read like a rom-com book, I'm like, all right, enough with the jokes. I'm like, it's a little too cheesy now. I'm getting like tired of having you guys just joke around every other chapter. It was the perfect blend of comedy with romance in it, with real life issues in it. It was great. I really have no notes for this book. And because I rated it a 5 star, it does in fact pass the shelf test and it will go onto the shelf of fame. I'm so excited that our first book that we did for the shelf test is one that was a 5 star. They're not all going to be like that, but I'm happy that our first one, we're starting off on a very strong note. So, yeah, if you guys have read this book, let me know what you guys thought of it. It was such a fun time for me, and I'm sad that it's over, I kind of miss the characters a little bit. That also goes into like a 5-star rating for me, is like if I get connected to the characters and I miss them after I'm done reading it. So yeah, I'm gonna definitely have a hard time finding a book to follow up with after this one. And it's just, yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna have to pick up to fill the void. Something else I forgot to mention also, sorry, before we go, the title is First Time Caller. And you assume while you're reading the entire book that she is the first time caller, that Lucy is the first time caller because she is calling for the very first time into the station. Um, and she is technically a first time caller when she calls in, or when her daughter does it reluctantly. But then at the very end of the book, you find out technically it's Aiden who's the first time caller, because he's the one who calls into the station and he says, long time listener, first time caller. I love that. I love when books actually make the connection with something that happens in the plot and like makes it relate to the actual title of the book. I just love when they have that full 360 moment. It's really, really cool. And I love that. So I needed to mention that. So I highlighted it in the very end too. So thank you guys for tuning in today and for listening and tuning into the shelf test. Hope to do more of these in the future. Let me know if there's any books that you guys want me to put to the test and see if they make the cut and they can make it to the shelf of fame. It's going to be so hard trying to do this with other books that are like hyped and stuff. Like I want to make sure that I'm doing it justice and that I'm reading books that you guys want me to read and I'm reading books that you guys actually want to know about. So definitely let me know what you guys want me to read next for the shelf test and I will try my best to get to it. And thank you guys for tuning in as always. And we're going to put a bookmark in today's chapter, but I'll see you guys in the next chapter. Bye.